disconnect music.
The battle for the mind of North America will be fought in the video arena.
are live. We are live. Awesome. No problem, miss. Hi, this is Max here. Hope you're doing great. It is July the 29th at 7:30 p.m. And it's a pleasure to be with you guys today. I hope you guys can hear me well because some has some weird issues with the audio today for some weird reason, I guess. But anyways, I just want to thanks. I just want to thank Jeff here to taking the time with this interview. It wasn't a pleasure. At some point, I want to say I need to talk to this guy because. I've seen him a lot in a few places and everything. I've seen him in Edmonton, I think 2 weeks ago, at an event here in Edmonton about Christian. Was it Christian candidate
Christians
at
involved
the
in municipal politics, I would say. Yeah.
municipal politics? Absolutely. And I was like, oh, that's good. And also, I remember I also saw you in Red Deer at an event over there from Brendan Pringle, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
A while ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago, but yes. Yeah.
That
So,
was ago. That.
and we sort of go wherever we're invited and happy to do so. And that was a great event a while ago in Red Deer talking about it was another similar event trying to encourage folks to run for school board and get involved at the local level in that way.
Yeah, that was what. Well, thanks for your time, actually. And I said, because the reason why I wanted to do this interview is because I wanted to learn myself about the organization, what you guys are doing precisely, and also how we can work with other events and other organizations as well too. So I would like to thank you immensely for your time. And also for the audience who are watching online, there's going to be a little Q&A question. If you have any questions, okay, you mind just to write it down, and that's gonna show up like this. So I had some people who already commented right away, which is kind of amazing. So your questions will look like this at the bottom section, okay? So it's very important for you guys. If you have any questions, that's going to show up. It's going to show up on your side as well. So today we're going to talk about the Alberta Parents Union, what they do as an organization, what's they what they do, and what they have for plans, especially for the elections trustees specifically, what they do as an organization, what their strategies are, what calls to action, and have conversation with you guys as well too. So thanks a bunch for your time. So let's start going with this. So you are the executive director. So you, Jeff Park, are the executive director of Alberta Parents Union. Um, just a questions. Where your guys where are you exactly based at? Where you live, what you were doing, and what kind of actually push you into doing something like this?
Absolutely. I live in Lethbridge. I lived in Calgary for a decade. Had all four of my kids in Calgary, but found a cheaper and slower paced life in Lethbridge, and was happy to take that opportunity for my family. And our organization, the Alberta Parents Union, is province wide uh, because education is a provincial issue.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the school boards are very important, and I'm sure we're talking more about that. But at the most basic level, the education policies are set at the provincial level, and so yeah, I have my wife and four kids here in
Mm-hmm.
beautiful Lethbridge, Alberta,
Mm-hmm.
and and sorry, you were okay. And yes, we were in Calgary for a decade. So still the majority of Alberta Parents Union members and supporters are in Calgary still, uh,
Okay.
because
Of the proximity.
because of the proximity there for the first 3 years almost of our existence.
Hmm.
Well, no, I guess only about the first 2 years, because I founded the Alberta Parents Union in May 12th of 2022 was when we launched. We were obviously working behind the scenes long before that, but May 12th of 2022 was when we officially launched, and then I moved to Lethbridge last year. So,
Oh, nice. So
and
that's
sorry, I
so
don't know if I got all those questions. Where do I live, and what does the Alberta Parents Union do? Was that the other question?
yeah, absolutely. So basically you started. So my question is also, what actually led you to start a group like this? Because I'm not a parent. I don't have kids, but my question is, how what actually made you start something like the Alberta Parents Union?
Yeah, so it it starts from my own childhood, having benefited from uh, choice in education. My brothers and I all went to schools of choice or were home educated throughout our entire uh, our entire lives growing up, and throughout K through 12, and we're never in sort of our residentially assigned public school, um, and so I went to school in Virginia, realized how unusual that was for a lot of people, and so that made me passionate very early about that cause. Um, met a pretty girl from Edson, who had the experience herself of having started out in the Catholic system, got bullied in the Catholic system, so she moved to the public system, got bullied in the public system. They tried home education. Home education didn't work for their family, and finally she landed in an independent school, or what some people might call a private school. Although private tends to trigger the thought of elite among a lot of people, like an elite uh, uh, private school, which this most certainly wasn't. And the vast majority of private schools or independent schools in Alberta aren't, which is one of the reasons why the government is getting better at using the word independent school to describe that sector, independent of school boards, independent of direct government control. And so anyway, so it was finally an independent school that she landed at. And in Ontario, for instance, her parents wouldn't have been able to afford that decision, quite simply. In Toronto, where her mother was from, wouldn't have been a possibility. In the vast majority of the states in the United States, wouldn't have been a possibility. And especially then, increasingly, that's less true, which is great. But especially at that time, and so just me and my brothers and my wife all benefiting from choice in education, having those options available to us was the big driver, even before I had children. And then once I had my own children, it's not like that changed my mind about anything, but it intensified my beliefs in many things, and the belief in parental rights and choice in education was a major one of them. And so I like to say that the Alberta Parents Union is not, at its absolute roots, a school choice organization. At our absolute roots, we are a parents know better than politicians organization.
Okay.
Specifically, parents know better than politicians about how to educate our own kids. And the best way for a government to prove that they believe that is to provide choice in education, to let the money follow the child to the places the parents choose, rather than educrats in Edmonton deciding where the money goes. So that's why we talk so much about school choice. We talk about parental rights hand in hand. It's because at our roots, we are a parents know better than politicians organization, and we think that those are the clearest, most well-known two ways to make that clear, that parents know better than politicians, to talk about school choice and parental rights.
So basically, the Alberta Parents Union is an organization that is basically helping other people to basically educating to the uh, multiple school types. Is that right? Is my understanding accurate?
So we definitely we're not trying to be like a guide to what kind of school to choose or anything like that. That's not our function, but to fight for every parent's right to choose the school they would like, and to have that money follow the child to the school that we like, which Alberta does a decent job of. I would say Alberta has the most school choice in Canada. It's a close run thing between, say, us and British Columbia, actually. But I would say Alberta has the most school choice in Canada. Increasingly, for many years, for decades, really, Alberta had world class school choice, the most school choice you could find anywhere, where more of the money followed the child to the choice that the parents made, regardless of what that choice was. That's what I mean by sort of robust school choice. Alberta for many years had some of the best in the world. Increasingly now, some of these U.S. states that have Republican governors, senates, and state houses. So the Republicans control all three levels of the state government.
The red states.
The red state, the trifecta red states, they're sometimes called. Those particular red states are now surpassing Alberta and attract and one of the things that we're starting to see is Alberta has for a long time drawn in more families with children, which tend to be some of the prime wage earners, some of the people that you want to draw into your province, where they're prime wage earners and they're not about to take more from the system than they put in. Which, if I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard all the arguments about, say, Alberta Provincial Pension Plan. I'm not here to argue for that, but one of the reasons Alberta that would benefit Alberta, the main argument for why that would benefit Alberta, is that Alberta has younger workers than the rest of the country. One of the reasons Alberta has younger workers than the rest of the country is because we have better school choice than anywhere else in the country. So for a long time, we've benefited from that, and we still are within Canada. But what we're starting to see is that Alberta is actually starting to lose some of those prime workers to Arizona, Utah, Iowa, states like this that have universal school choice where the money follows the child. So in Arizona, for instance, if you want to home educate, $8,500 US, so that's what, 85,000 Canadian dollars, something like that. Just kidding. But 8,500 US can follow the child even to a home education, if you can figure out how to spend that much money on a home education. But the cool thing about that is if you need an assessment for autism, if you need an assessment for a speech therapist, if you need speech therapy, if you need expensive therapies that wouldn't otherwise be necessarily covered in the American system, especially, you can apply your empowerment scholarship account, I believe is what they call it. You can apply your empowerment scholarship account to those costs, those legitimate education costs, as long as they're legitimate education costs. You can apply those to those costs as well. And this has continued even though it's been criticized by the Democrats. This has continued even as the Democrats have taken control of the Arizona governorship and state house, I believe. And so, and we've seen that in Alberta too, by the way, is we have robust school choice in Alberta. We had 4 years of the New Democratic Party. They didn't roll out any new school choice or anything like that, but and there were some threats here and there, but for the vast majority, for the most part, they left it alone for their
Mm-hmm.
4 years in power. They didn't roll back school choice in any sort of an organized or major way. So that was one of the things that attracted me to this field as well, is that in so many things, especially where we're trying to vindicate the little guy against the government, you get your wins, but then when the party hostile to whatever wins you got is out of power, they get rolled back. And so a lot of times, if you believe the people know better than the government, a lot of times your wins get rolled back much faster than you ever got them rolled in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So it was attractive to me to see that choice in education is one of those places where it's extremely difficult to roll back. Once we
Mm-hmm.
get something, you're actually pulling funding from actual kids' schools if you want to roll this back. So it's very hard to do, right? And so that attracted me to this field as well, is that your wins tend to be a lot more permanent in the
Okay,
than
I
some others when
understand.
you're fighting back against the state.
Absolutely. That is so funny because this is more like a personal experience here. For those who know me to some degree, I lived in Quebec for 20 years, and there's no education choice at all. Basically, back in the day when I was a kiddo, there were school boards like municipal type of county style school boards, which were independently from one another. And over time, eventually, the provincial government decided to merge everything together, and now is the Ministry of Education which is actually pulling the strings now. Now, during this pandemic, that turned out to be very well for the government and telling what to do. So basically, what you're saying is that by preserving choice in education in Alberta, we can accommodate those situations and also preventing the that also prevents the brain drain that tends to happen if we only have a top down education system like what they have there. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. So you absolutely see that. So yeah, I want people to realize I'm not taking a position on um, immigration here or whatever. What I'm
No,
talking
no, no,
is
no, absolutely not.
kind of the uh, if you want to attract the kind of people to Alberta and to maintain the Alberta advantage that we've had in so many ways in so many categories, a lot of the root of that has been our lead in educational choice, in empowering parents with the money following the child to the choices the parents make, and we're losing our edge now with these things. One thing, as a I've researched these things for many years now, and one of the things that you always notice is that there's some lag time. It takes time for the full effects to be felt. So we're not, Alberta's still, according to the Program International for Student Assessment, the PISA test, Alberta is still second in the world in language arts, second in the world in science, and seventh in the world in mathematics education.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the results that we get on these internationally normed standardized tests of 15-year-olds. And so Alberta still has a fantastic education system. Alberta is still attracting people to Alberta, as opposed to any other Canadian province. We're bringing them in extremely quickly from other Canadian provinces, but we're starting to lose our edge over some places that stay warmer year round than we do,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little concerning.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely. And also one thing is, and it seems to be that really actually what drives people, at least in at least to Alberta specifically, is the abundance of freedom of choice, right? because of freedom of choice in terms of multiple, like in this case, education. That is what's driving people to move here in the province. Is my understanding accurate?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And this is the thing too. So, I mean, what's the US state that's growing the fastest right now? Florida. And it's because
Mhm.
Florida has almost a brand, like a like they've almost got like a name brand for freedom. For you can
Mhm.
come here, we're the free state of Florida, they even call themselves. Um and by the way, the Educational Freedom Institute in the United States ranks Florida number one in education freedom. So this is just part of the overall brand. So even for people without kids, um, you're attracting more of the kind of people that you want in a free and prosperous society when you have things like school choice policies.
Oh, that's very, 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 very interesting actually to see that we, because of life, because of freedom, we tend to have a better quality of life. And I think that that's one of the things that you mentioned when I talk about in the second about the brain drain, which is kind of, is that something related to what we're going to talk about here? Is that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Is it frequently frequently brain drain refers to more of the post-secondary side, and so there are some things that Alberta can do about that as well. For instance, um, one of our uh, oh, you're referring, I think, to one of our petitions, the Stop the
Yeah,
Brain
absolutely. Yeah,
petition.
absolutely.
So Alberta, so at Alberta Parents Union.ca, great website. You can find the action tab, and there's a drop down list of all our active campaigns, and one of them right now is still the Stop the Brain Drain petition. And so one interesting thing that Alberta, uh, sort of a weird quirk with Alberta post secondaries, um, is that they, um, so if you're applying to an Alberta post secondary institution from Ontario or Mumbai or uh, or uh, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and you don't have an Alberta diploma, because why would you, coming from any of those places? Um, then you can just take a standardized test, ACT, SAT, those sorts of things. You can take a standardized test so that they can make admission decisions uh, in each department. Alberta post secondaries make admission decisions by departments. So in each department, they can make their admission decisions based on your standardized tests. Um, if you are an Albertan and you don't have an Alberta diploma, then almost every department in every Alberta post-secondary institution has a different policy for how you can apply and get your credentials recognized. And
Hmm.
so for a lot of, so this hits home educated people, it hits military families, it hits Ukrainian refugees was a big deal at the time when we launched that petition. Um, anyone who's now here in Alberta, and wants to attend an Alberta post-secondary institution, but they don't have an Alberta diploma, they have a completely different, and from department to department within the same institution, a completely different task before them for how to get their credentials recognized. And so we said, look, if departments want to have that as an option for someone who maybe doesn't want to take a standardized test, that's fine. We believe in freedom. But they should offer the same way in that an Ontarian or an Indian or a
Yeah,
Floridian.
absolutely.
um, Albertans shouldn't just have this weird backdoor that no one else has, if they don't have an Alberta diploma. And so one of the reasons we called that the Stop the Brain Drain petition is because some of those families, they're not following the Alberta curriculum, perhaps because they're traveling, because they're uh, uh, because they're home educating and they don't want to follow an aligned curriculum or whatever. Um, some of the people that are coming out of those families are some of the smartest Albertans we have.
Mm-hmm.
And and by the way, if they want to go to the University of Saskatchewan, they can just take a standardized test and know whether they're getting in or not. If they want to go to the University of Kentucky, they can just take a standardized test and know whether they're getting in or not. And so so, if we're going to, especially for the folks that we had here in Alberta, we trained them up K through 12. They didn't want an Alberta diploma. They didn't follow the
Mm-hmm.
Alberta curriculum, but they want to go to an Alberta post-secondary institution. We shouldn't be basically chasing them out of the province.
Yes.
And so that's the Stop the Brain Drain petition. It's a simple way to recognize freedom of choice, freedom to not follow the Alberta curriculum, therefore not have an Alberta diploma, and still get your credentials recognized when you're going to an Alberta post-secondary institution.
I remember a friend of mine. She lives in Gatineau, which is the border town just across the. It's just in Quebec. It's in like it's like the border town at the Quebec side. You cross the river, the Ottawa River, you're in Gatineau. Okay, it's full of government works there. She has a degree in ophthalmology, I believe, like ultra medical type of thing, and because she attended her class in Quebec specifically, she can work anywhere in Quebec. That's it. If she wants to work in the province, let's say Alberta, whatever, that's completely fine, but not in, but this is, no, sorry, I forgot. No, I'm sorry. I just mixed a few things. Sorry, my bad. It was like, my brain is draining, I guess. Good job. Fun attendant. She attended a ophthalmology class at the in Ottawa. That's in Ottawa.
Okay.
She can work anywhere in Canada without any restrictions. But if she wants to work in Quebec, which is right across the border, she can't because of the language issue.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the thing. I didn't have this problem because I was training in Quebec. So like all my college education was in Quebec. Then I'm working here in Alberta, so I didn't have this issue. But what you mentioned is that if you are, let's say, if you want to stop the drain issue, it's more if you want from other people from provinces and other countries to continue the equitation. There's a backstop at the Alberta side, but not if you want to move out. If you're trained in Alberta, if you want to continue your education in another province, in another country, nothing prevents people from doing that, right?
Right.
Oh.
And so, so our policy right now weirdly discourages Albertans without Alberta diplomas from attending Albertan post-secondary institutions. and a lot of people, they meet the person they're going to marry at a post-secondary institution. So once you lose them, they're gone. Right.
And that's very bad. I did not know that. I didn't know there was a possibility. Oh my gosh. Anyhow, that's really insane. In regards to the to your organization, this you run an organization, Alberta Parents Union. Do you have alliances or partnerships with other groups as well?
Yes, absolutely. So we're working on a project right now with the Aristotle Foundation for Public Policy, talking about we're working on an academic paper about the harms of residential assignment to economic development. So even for people without kids in school, but by residential assignment I mean that where you live assigns the public, or in Alberta, the public, Catholic, or Francophone school that you attend. So in most in most of Canada, it's something like that. Some places have gotten rid of their alternative language schools or seriously limited them, and some places have gotten rid of their Catholic education system. But in Alberta, basically for any one house, you have 3 possible schools you could be assigned to, depending on whether if you're Catholic, you can be assigned to the Catholic school. If you're Francophone, which doesn't mean you want to learn French, it means your family speaks French at home. If you're Francophone, you're assigned to another school. Everyone else is assigned to a public school based on where you live. Not just a public school division, but an individual public school. And in the past, it had been kind of easy for Albertans to ignore that because most Alberta school divisions offered what we would call intra-district choice. You can choose whatever school you want within the Calgary Board of Education, for instance.
Okay. So could it be something? So could it be something like if you are, let's say, in Edmonton and you're attending, let's say, Edmonton Public School Boards, that doesn't mean that if you live in the same neighborhood, you will have to go to a school in the same area, but nothing prevents you from going to, let's say, Strathcona School or something, right?
So the Strathcona Tweedsmuir you're talking about? So that's an independent school. So that you're not residentially assigned. No one's residentially assigned to Strathcona Tweedsmuir, but all of the neighborhood schools within the Edmonton Public School Division, you're residentially assigned to. And it used to be within the Edmonton Public School Division that didn't matter too much because you could just basically go wherever. But increasingly now, with schools getting more crowded and that kind of thing, they're decreasing that choice to where you really do, especially in Calgary now, but in Edmonton as well, you really do have to go to the actual school you're assigned to. And so what we're working on right now with the Aristotle Foundation for Public Policy is we're working on a paper that's actually looking at what that does to the local economy in that part of the city. So not just what it does for kids that are trapped in a school that isn't a good fit for them, but what does it do to the local economy, even for people who don't have kids in school? And so we're and it won't surprise you to know that the more school choice you have, the better it is for that economy not to get locked in what we call a poverty trap, where certain neighborhoods, whether we're agnostic as to whether a bad neighborhood or a poor neighborhood causes bad schools, or if bad schools cause the bad neighborhood, that doesn't even matter for the purposes of our study. What we studied was, are you locked in? Are you basically trapped in? Is there less economic mobility in that neighborhood for everyone because the schools are bad, for instance? And does that lock people into a poverty trap where because the schools are bad, the housing is cheap and so people can't build equity and they can't move out and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of in a real quick, and then more crime and all that kind of thing. That I'll save it for the paper to sort of spell that all out. But that's basically what we looked at, and it won't surprise you to know that Alberta does very well on that measure. Actually, British Columbia, Vancouver does the best on the measure that we designed for this study, and Ontario does the worst because Ontario has the least choice in education outside that residentially assigned system. So you are going to get assigned based on where you live, based on your house. So if you want to think of it this way, it means that in Ontario, basically your tuition is your house. So if the most expensive thing that anyone's ever going to buy in their lifetime, for most of us, our house is the most expensive thing we're ever going to buy. If that's if that's your price of admission to your schools, and there's sort of no other path out except for paying taxes once and then paying again for tuition to another school, like you do in Ontario, and in Ontario, there are lots of private schools that run $50,000, and their outcomes are no better than the public schools. It's really I was talking to someone from Ontario who was mentioning that it really is just a $50,000 networking opportunity. You'll meet different people who are going to be more successful because their parents are richer, perhaps. But that's really all you're paying for. It's an extremely expensive way to do school choice. We have very few of those kinds of schools in Alberta. We have many more that are much more accessible to more people because about 65% of the money follows the child to those schools here in Alberta, with 65% of the money that we would spend on the child if they were in a public school follows the child to those schools in Alberta. And so we don't have people sort of locked in to poverty trap neighborhoods nearly as much as Ontario does, because you have more options for where to send your kids. So people with kids aren't trapped into these options, which leads to a downward spiral for the whole neighborhood. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the theory.
So basically what you mentioned is, so your theory is that if you're essentially, or you're assigned into a school, I'm talking about the poverty consequence here, poverty line that you mentioned. So the poverty situation. So what you're saying is that, economically speaking, by having, let's say, a school in a very poor developed area, okay, all the kids can actually go in. If all the kids go to that school, that creates a economic situation that tends to go with the status of that school, meaning that if your school if the school is in a poor neighborhood, you're essentially going to send those skills into a school that is in a poor neighborhood, and those kids will act as they were in a poor state. Something right. Like that.
Let's think about it from the other direction. So in Alberta, where we have school choice, I can move into a poor neighborhood without having to worry about my kids going to a bad school because we're in a poor neighborhood. I can choose a different school for my kids. So now I have a reason to get a cheaper house in a bad neighborhood without having to worry about what that means for my kids' schooling.
Ah.
And if I do that, then that leads to, because these all things spiral in either direction, right? So if I might do that, then other people with more means who
can actually do it as well.
I'm a bad example because I'm not exactly a person of great means, but let's pretend that I was. Then other people of more means who don't have kids might move into the neighborhood, and you get a virtuous cycle there where you can get out of these poverty traps. But if you don't have school choice, say in Ontario, for instance, then even if I might want to move into a neighborhood that I think has a real opportunity, maybe I want to move into a neighborhood and open up a corner store because I see real economic opportunity in this neighborhood. If people can just, if we can get good jobs and some beautification and a crime watch, and then this neighborhood could be on the up and up. but I don't move into that neighborhood because my kids would have to go to the public school, and the public school is lousy,
Mm.
right? So so uh, so that first step towards that neighborhood being able to be revitalized never happens because I'm not going to move there because I've got kids, right? And so that's sort of the poverty trap that we're talking about there, uh, and
Okay.
why Alberta and British Columbia don't have one really in the same way,
As
and Ontario does.
interesting, very interesting. So your paper you're trying to release is to demonstrate this poverty line, poverty cycle that can happen when there's no choice in education, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
And we're
interesting.
doing that. So the reason I brought that up is you were asking about collaborations. We're doing that with the Aristotle Foundation for Public
Hmm.
Policy. Um, we work frequently and interact frequently with Cardis, which is a Christian think tank, which does a lot of work on school choice and schools that work towards the common good and that kind of thing. Independent schools in particular, that kind of thing. They've got a lot of research, Cardis.ca, and then we obviously the Fraser Institute is a big sort of think tank in this space. So we work with think tanks like that. We're not strictly speaking a think tank. We've got some think tank DNA, but we're more about mobilizing parents. So an action tank, if you will. We're we're more about mobilizing parents, engaging parents, help. So taking all that great research that think tanks produce and sending out a newsletter to help regular parents understand it and apply it in the sort of activism that they might want to get involved in to fight for their kids' education. So
Mm.
um, that's sort of our function. And then Parents for Choice in Education is another group. So I used to be the executive director of Parents for Choice in Education. So I've got plenty of love for that organization, and we collaborate closely on these sorts of things as well. So there's lots of these groups, and obviously Alberta Independent Schools, the Association of Independent Schools and Colleges in Alberta, or ASCA. We work closely with them. The I don't want to get their acronym wrong, but the Association of Alberta Public Charter Schools, TAPS. We work with them as well. So on all those levels, we try to work with the folks who are trying to emphasize school choice, parental rights, all those sorts of issues, and we'll work with anyone on a common cause. If there was a group that wanted to sort of turn the NDP around on school choice and make sure that the NDP supported charter schools, even let's say even a more narrow, then we would be the first one to jump in and want to collaborate with a group like that. But unfortunately, that group doesn't exist. Maybe your listeners aren't the right people to ask to start it, but if anyone is listening who does want to start that, please do. We will absolutely help you out there. So yeah, we'll work with anyone who is working towards that goal of recognizing that parents know better than politicians, and even if they don't believe that in the broad way that we do, but they want to work on something narrow
Hmm.
where we do agree, then we're happy to do that.
Just a small question about what you mentioned. The money should follow the children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have kids, so I don't know necessarily the whole aspect. So what you mentioned is that when kids go to school, the government pays. Let's say I want to homeschool my kids. Okay. So what you mentioned is that the government pays a percentage of the tuition fees, right?
Well, so home education, for instance, it wouldn't be a tuition; it would be the sort of costs that you incur in buying books and buying a printer or buying maps or those kinds of things, and the specialists that you might need for your child's education, all that kind of thing. Unfortunately, in Alberta, we only about well, not about, only $910 is reimbursed to the parents for a home education. Another $910 goes to the education authority, that the supervising authority that you sign up with. So we have a if you want to receive, if you want some of the money to follow your child to a home education, we have supervising authorities, which can be an independent school. It can't be a charter school, unfortunately. That's a weird aspect of our law, but any public school, francophone school, Catholic school, or independent school can be an education authority, and some actually have way more students through their so they're an independent school, but the vast majority of their students would be home education students because they've really developed a knack for that, and people go to them for that expertise. So that but then $910 follows the child to the education authority, and $910 follows the child to reimburse parents for education related costs for that home education. And so that means cost is still a barrier for a lot of Albertans, because a lot of most people spend a lot more than $910 per student per year on education. I mean, for comparison, and it's not like home education has to be as expensive as a public school. Well, that's one of the values, that it's not. But for comparison, we send about $12,000 per student per year for each public school student, and it's actually quite a bit over $14,000 for each francophone student at this point. And I think it's pretty close to $35,000 per student per year for the Northland School Division, which is way up north, 95% indigenous school division, very rural, very hard to. So I understand there are challenges and everything, but despite that, roughly, I think it's $35,000 a year now that follows the child to the average child to Northland School Division. Northland School Division is, one would have to say, one of the most failing school divisions in the province. They should get a lot more money because they're rural and transportation is an issue and all that kind of stuff. But you've still got kids arriving to school in wagons and stuff like that. And that's when they arrive at all, because the biggest problem, the reason the Auditor General of Alberta mentions Northland School Division in his report every single year, is that Northland School Division has, I believe it's a 33% chronic absenteeism rate. And in Alberta, if you're from another place, you might think chronic absenteeism is missing one in every 20. I think most places chronic absenteeism is missing one in every 10 school days. In Alberta, you have to miss one in every 5 school days for it to be considered chronically absent. So in a full school week, you have to miss one day every week. Obviously they're usually clumped together rather than spread out like that, but you've got to be missing the equivalent of a day every single week to be counted as chronically absent in Alberta. So 33% is a huge problem. And one of the things the Auditor General mentions every year in his report is that the absenteeism rate for the teachers in Northland School Division is quite high, which it makes sense. Why are the kids going to show up if the teachers feel that they don't have to show up? So anyway, so for $35,000 following the child to an education like that, if you can call that an education, um, we could instead be looking for more ways to sort of turbocharge home education in that area. See if there's some uptake on that. If not everyone would want to do that, and that's fine. But see if we can get independent schools or charter schools in that area. Or another thing is, can we just decentralize? Northland School Division is actually not connected to itself in multiple places. So can we just break those apart, make those maybe 7 separate school divisions, 5 separate school divisions instead of one? They would be small school divisions, but small isn't bad.
It's more effective,
right? Small is not a bad thing, and I think people are always afraid. Well, you're gonna duplicate the administration and all that kind of stuff. Well, the other way of saying that is you're going to introduce competition. Right, and competition is the rising tide that lifts all boats, which is why one of the things that I like to point out most often is that they've done a study of when private school choice programs are like a voucher system or an education savings account or a private scholarship or anything like that are introduced so that kids can go to private school in the States. There have now been, I think it's 28, maybe it's 29 studies on what that does to the test scores of kids in public schools. So the kids that didn't go to the private school when you could go to the when there was a scholarship or a voucher or whatever to go to the private school.
Is this the one I'm showing on the screen here? The Northland
Yes.
School Division,
Yeah,
number 16. Okay, I just
number 61. Yeah.
Okay, because there are number 60 or something to that effect. Okay.
Yeah, 61. Yeah. And so yeah, it's just tragic, and I'm not blaming anyone who's doing the job there. Obviously,
it's just the way demographics speak and they work.
Right. When I'm talking about the system is how can the system be better? So one of the things that we've seen is it's 28 or 29 studies that have been done in the U.S. When money follows a child in one way or another to a private school, what happens to the scores in the public schools in that area? And twice they have found any kind of negative result on public school test scores when there's more competition from private schools. Once they were unable to find any effect one way or the other. The rest of the times, so 25 or 26 times, they found positive effects on public school test scores when kids can go to private, when kids can have the money follow them to a private school in the same area as the public school. So but that's really important, because one of the main arguments that the Alberta Teachers Association and anyone that opposes choice in education, anyone that opposes competition as if it's a dirty word in education, anyone who has that idea, they'll say, well, of course, private schools are going to do better than public schools. What they do is they cream the best kids. They take the cream of the crop. They cream the best kids off the top of the public schools. Those kids go to private schools, and then the public schools are left with the kids that are the hardest to teach. So if that's true, you would expect the test scores at public schools to go down. If the private schools are just taking the best kids and leaving only the kids that are the hardest to educate, and if competition doesn't work in education, then you would expect the test scores to go down when you have more private school choice in an area. Those public school test scores should go down. But that's not what we see. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
we see that the public school test scores go up, which proves that I'm right and the ATA is wrong.
Yeah,
That
and
competition works. It's a rising tide that lifts all boats.
yeah, and I've seen it on my own eyes. Like when I was in school, when I was in school, get this, there was a school when I was doing my high school. Right across the street was a private school, and what we're getting from the students themselves is that the people who are actually going to that private school, they're actually getting like the better grades than the public school. So people are actually going to that private school, and I've seen people actually moving from that school to the other. Like actually, they know. Let's say you have a student who has a family who's going to that school, and they're comparing the results and the quality of the education. And that actually pushed that private school to get at least better in their teachings, which is kind of interesting. You're talking about the Alberta Teachers Association and possible union. So, what they say to what do they have uh, against public choice of education? You just mentioned a few things today about um, the marks not getting better on on a private system, that's something that effect. What do they have against private choice,
Yeah.
against choice in education? What are the
Yeah. By the
arguments?
by the way, actually, Corey DeAngelis, who people who are interested in this field can follow him on Twitter. He's always tweeting about school choice. He's an American, but constantly tweeting about choice in education himself. Um, he was actually one of the co-authors on a study in Detroit that showed that same sort of rising tide that lifts all boats effect for crime.
What's this guy's name? What's this guy's name? I'm gonna check on Twitter.
Corey DeAngelis, Corey.
Can you put on the chat, on the private chat, or just gonna
Sure,
look that up?
sure. Um, and so so he was actually one of the authors of a study of to see what the effect of school choice was on crime um, in Detroit. When Detroit had a school choice system introduced, but there were certain neighborhoods that got it and certain neighborhoods that didn't, or certain neighborhoods where a private school actually opened up and certain neighborhoods where one didn't. And so they studied if a private school opened up in your public school's neighborhood and you kept going to public school the whole time. So we're talking about public school kids. So you went to public school the whole time, but the public school kids who had a private school in their neighborhood versus the public school kids who didn't, the public school kids who did not have competition from a private school were more likely to commit crimes later in their life than the public school kids who had a private school in their neighborhood. So even these things that it seems like, well, that's so intangible. Like, how would you compete on sort of that, let's call it character formation or something like that? Well, we've seen that is actually how it works. That when public schools face competition from private schools, they do a better job of character formation than when they don't. And we've seen that with family formation. Are you more likely to get married, stay married? Okay, yeah, it's are you more likely? It's the success sequence, I think, was this study. It was, are you more likely to go to university, then get married, then have kids, and stay married, right? I think that's what the study was. And again, public schools that are exposed to competition from private schools are more likely to produce students who do all those things in the correct order and stay married. And so you've got all these things
Interesting.
that it would be impossible. It would be impossible for parents to just pull out a radar gun and say, hey, is this school turning my kid into a better person or not? But obviously parents can tell um, about these character building effects that schools should also care about. Parents, better than politicians. This is one of the reasons why we trust parents more than politicians. Parents, better than politicians, can know, can tell whether those qualities are present in a school, and it encourages competition, which makes everyone better off. When schools realize that, okay, we're going to have to do a better job of, well, maybe it is something as simple as teaching kids that they can't be absent from school. Your parent drops you off and then you go sneak off to the convenience store after they go around the corner or whatever. That you can't do that. Schools might have to get better at that. Maybe it's as simple as that. But it's all these things that politicians are going to have a hard time measuring, but parents know and are looking for in a school, and are carrying out a much more complicated assessment than just test scores. And even those are showing up. So, okay. So now that I've beat that horse even more, about how competition is a rising tide that lifts all boats. So you asked me, so what's the Alberta Teachers Association's objection? Like they would say, well, you can't really have competition in education. It doesn't work that way. I think we've sort of proved that that's false. They say, well, you're just what happens there is you just cream the best kids off the top of the public school. Then we're left educating the worst kids. Well, then you shouldn't have that effect where the schools that experience the most competition from private schools are the ones that get better results instead of worse results. And so that's not true. Really what they're left with are arguments like, well, it's important for democracy that everyone sort of has the same sort of, and that's where my friends at Curtis come in clutch. They did a study back in, I want to say it was 2014 or so. I can't remember exactly. But they did a study on the civics outcomes of public schools versus Catholic schools versus charter schools versus independent schools, as we call them in Alberta. And they did a little bit on home education. Home education is a little harder to study, but they did a little bit on home education. And what they found was that charter schools and independent schools and home education blew public schools out of the water in terms of raising citizens who were conscientious citizens, who knew what they needed to know about their government to get involved in their government, who did get involved, who do volunteer, who do give money on any metric you want to measure. The civics outcomes were better in schools of choice than they were in the public schools. So the idea that you have to have one size fits all system, if you want kids to learn about their government, if you want kids to be able to participate in society, is sort of disproved by the outcomes, where you had big gaps between public school and charter schools, independent schools, and on the things that they could measure, home education. And Catholic schools did a little bit better than public schools here, but
not a lot,
not by a ton. But the other thing that you have to take into account is, and maybe it's worth taking into account, maybe it's not, but is that Catholic schools educate a lot more kids than any of those other options. So if you can get a little bit of a difference with a lot more kids, then that's an advantage too. So it's interesting, if you want to getting rid of choices in education, which I'm against. I don't want to get rid of any of them. But if you want to get rid of any, the public schools are the most obvious one. In terms of these outcomes on any number of things. The Atlantic Institute. Paige McPherson, who runs the education policy for the Fraser Institute now, she was with AIMS, Atlantic Institute for something. M&S. Anyway, so she did a study way back then with them about Alberta's charter schools and the success that they were having, trying to encourage Atlantic provinces to adopt charter school legislation, which none of them have. Alberta is the only province in Canada that has charter schools. But in the course of that study, one of the things that she studied was the provincial achievement test outcomes. So everyone's taking the same provincial achievement test in Alberta. The provincial achievement test outcomes for charter schools versus independent schools versus Francophone schools versus Catholic schools versus public schools. And I list them in that order because that's the order that they came in that study, is that the charter schools did the best. And so charter schools are a really exciting opportunity because almost 11%, I think it's about 11% now, of Alberta students attend a charter school. So
what's a charter school?
Oh, sorry. I should explain what a charter school is. Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
So a charter school is essentially, it's a public school without a school board, without an elected school board.
Okay.
And here's a really important thing: without Alberta Teachers Association teachers. So it's a non-union, non-school board public school. So
more like an independent school, right?
It's sort of like an independent school in that way. They can't teach religion, which is unfortunate, because we have public schools that teach religion. We call them Catholic schools. So it's unfortunate that we have that sort of discriminatory approach towards charter schools. So they can't teach religion. They've got a lot more regulations. So in that sense, they're more, and importantly, the government of Alberta themselves gets to decide whether they exist or not, which if you're an independent school, the government of Alberta doesn't get to decide whether you exist. They do get to decide whether they fund you, but they've got a formula there and whatever. But they don't get to decide whether you get to open up at all or not. Whereas the government of Alberta decides directly whether charter schools get to open. And whether charter schools have to close. And so they're independent in that sense, but they're not independent of the government. Their government run schools, but without a school board and without the ATA. And so just with those two advantages, really, they end up being the most successful schooling in terms of test scores, right? If you care about other things, then maybe not. In fact, probably not if you care about other things. But in terms of, sorry, I shouldn't say probably not. Independent schools tend to do better on the other measures because people tend to choose independent schools for reasons, not primarily for academics. People tend to choose independent schools because they want their religion taught, because of the values, because of the character formation, because of whatever other issues. So independent schools being sensitive to the parents, needing to provide what the parents are looking for in that way. Independent schools are providing that, and they're more concerned by providing what parents are actually looking for than providing test scores, which parents care less about.
In a sense, a charter school is basically acting like an independent school, but it's not an independent school fully.
Right. So it's a government run. It's still a government run school, but without a school board, or sorry, not without a school board, without a elected by the public school board. So you don't go to the polling place and vote for your school board if your kids go to a charter school. If your kids go to a charter school, you can vote on who the school board is. Your neighbors whose kids don't go to the charter school can't. So that's part of the advantage of the government for sure as well.
So it's
governed,
more like
governed by the parents whose kids actually go to the school.
I see. Well, most schools are essentially like for EPSB schools. They're managed by the Edmonton Public School Boards. It's real. So that's a regular public school, basically, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So
I see.
So that's the difference, and just that bit of a difference has led to a huge difference in terms of the success that they have in terms of academics. And so that's really exciting because until 2020, we actually had this completely heartless and senseless rule in Alberta where there could only be 15 total charter schools in the whole province. So it's just an artifact of when it was passed by Ralph Klein in 1994. There were concerns that, well, if too many of these pop up at once, the system will be overwhelmed. We won't be able to regulate them. It'll be too much competition too fast. Public schools won't know how to handle it. All this kind of stuff. So there was all this fear mongering, and so they go, okay, well, we'll cap it at 15. There can only be 15 of them. And really, what that meant most of the time was that there were only 14 of them, because if there were 15, then you couldn't even apply to have a new charter school. So really, the government liked to keep it at 14, so they could at least take new
15 in the province.
15 in the whole province.
Oh my gosh.
And that cap was just lifted in 2020. And in a law that I really like the name of, it was called the Choice in Education Act. And so it had, it didn't really broadly address choice in education across a whole spectrum of things like I would have liked. But what it did do is it lifted that cap from charter schools. It made it easier to apply for a charter school if you're doing vocational training as a charter school. They wanted to see more of those. And it introduced notification only, no funding home education. So if you don't want funding as a home educator, you don't have to sign up with a supervising authority. You can take no money and home educate and complete free and clear. Government doesn't need to know anything about what you're doing. And so again, in Alberta, we believe in freedom of choice. So that was a good addition too. So I like all those changes. It wasn't as broad as I would like an act called the Choice in Education Act to have been, but it did do that important thing where it lifted that cap. So now with that cap lifted and with some of the charter schools that already existed, even under the cap, being able to expand and open up new campuses and that kind of thing. Now we have about 11% of the student population in Alberta are attending charter schools. Now, what's really cool about that is that each of the charter schools that already exist have about have a waiting list that's about twice as long as the number of kids that they can take in their school. Now, some of those might be duplicates, but also there are whole cities so Lethbridge has no charter schools. Red Deer has no charter schools. Grand Prairie has no charter schools. Fort Mac has no charter schools. So Fort McMurray has no charter schools. So you better believe that Fort McLeod has no charter schools, right? So the only charter schools, until 2020, basically, the only charter schools were in Calgary. Most of them were in Calgary. There were a few in Edmonton, and there was one in Medicine Hat. So now there are increasingly, we're getting rural charter schools starting to pop up. And we're going to start getting charter schools in those smaller centers like Lethbridge, Red Deer, and Grand Prairie, Fort Mac. And so that's really exciting. So between and obviously, if you live in Lethbridge, if you live in Red Deer, if you live in Fort Mac, your kid is not on a waiting list for a charter school because there is no charter school in your area. So between so there might be duplicates on those lists where there are kids on multiple charter schools waiting lists. They want to get into one of these, and they're on the waiting list for all of them. But there's easily more kids just in places that have no charter schools whatsoever. So you can easily imagine, with 2 times the waiting list than we have kids in these schools already, and the kids in these schools already are 11% of the student population, you can easily imagine charter schools becoming 33%, a third of the school population, if we just build them fast enough. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We just need seats for kids. If
absolutely.
we build charter schools fast enough, we could have 33% of the province educated in the, academically at least, best education that we have to offer in Alberta in terms of sector. Again, independent schools. Most people go to independent schools looking for other things, so they focus on those other things a little more. You're good at better education in those areas, perhaps get a better academic education in a charter school. We're in favor of whatever people choose. You might end up in a situation where a charter school isn't the right choice for your kid. I think a lot of people would feel that way. And so, at the moment, almost 70% of the province feels that way. So we want all those options to continue to be available. But the exciting thing is, if we can just build schools fast enough, if we can just get the government out of the way, approve enough charter schools, make sure they have access to the lending and the funding that they need to actually build, and to let them launch their programs, we could see a huge expansion of school choice without actually having to change
the
much
entire
at all.
system.
Yeah,
that's
and
it.
so, and by the way, like, we've had examples of, so after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, they switched all their public schools to charter schools, and because they were worried they wouldn't even be able to open up their schools again if they had the same union contracts to deal with, and the same slow school boards, and the same administration, and all the same rigmarole that had made New Orleans schools some of the worst schools in the country before Hurricane Katrina hit. They were worried that their education system would be doomed if they didn't do something. So they converted all their public schools to charter schools. And they had the remarkable result of, first of all, having a school system, which was not guaranteed. But also they've seen a lot more flexibility, and they've seen people that did go to places like Houston or Florida actually willing to come back to New Orleans and build their lives there again, and all that kind of thing. And it's been a remarkable sort of rebuilding story that has been kind of untold, because the people who would normally want to tell that story don't like charter schools because they don't like choice in education.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I kind of like about, I mean, if we're talking about charter school in particular, basically the proponents, like the opponents of any charter schools, are essentially basically the unions and the ATA, right? Primarily speaking.
Remember when the Alberta Teachers Association attacks private schools, they call them private schools, private schools and charter schools, remember that they're attacking the two kinds of education that you don't have to hire an ATA teacher to have. So it's really just attacking the competition. Not much more complicated than that. Um, they're just attacking the kinds of education that. So your free independent schools are free to hire a unionized workforce if they want. There's only one independent school in the province that does. The rest of them have the rest of them are ununionized teaching workforces, and so yeah, we should always remember that when the ATA attacks charter schools or independent schools, that this is Tim Hortons attacking McDonald's or something, right? Like
Yeah.
they're just
This is
you can't believe what they say about those, because why would they tell you the truth about the competition?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things about the ATA, and that struck me very hard is that, well, because as a guy who used to live outside, it's for me it's important to understand the landscape of the education here in the province, right? And how things are being forced and that sort of thing. You talk to a lot of to parents, I believe. So I believe you talk to a lot of to parents right now. What is mattering them? What the primary concern that were raised to you when it comes to choice in education? Is that the possibility of not being drawn into the woke ideology or other things? What drives them to should I say use the power of choice in education to their advantage, if you will?
Sure. Yeah. So it's interesting. So I talk to parents, and it's very frequently values concerns. They don't like the values that are being taught. They think that the public schools are hostile to their values. That's the main reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so they support
True.
choice in education because they don't want their child to be trapped in a school that's hostile to their family's own values. And whether that be on sex and gender issues, or whether that be on race and racial reconciliation type issues, critical race theory type issues, things like that. By the way, the most common parents who come to me with objections about that have Black or brown children, and so what they primarily they are the ones most opposed to this, because they don't want their Black or brown children taught that. So critical race theory at its very basic, at its very basics, is that white, or sometimes white and Asian and Jewish, or however you want to, are inherently oppressors, and Black and brown people are inherently oppressed. And so it's often parents of Black and brown children who say, I don't want my child to be taught that they're inherently oppressed. I don't want my child to think of themselves as inherently being a victim. I don't want them to think of their friends as being inherently oppressors. I especially hear this from places like Foothill School Division, which has had a big problem
Ooh.
with critical race theory. So that's a rural area. It's mostly white. Can you imagine like being a Black or brown child in a mostly white area and being told that all your friends, all your neighbors, everyone around you is inherently an oppressor and you're inherently oppressed? It's like, that's the worst for them, not actually. Like, it's bad for white kids to be told that they're inherently oppressors, but it's even worse for Black and brown kids to be told that they're inherently oppressed. So
yeah.
so we get lots of that. One of the things that I didn't expect, but probably should have, is when I started traveling the province, I started getting a lot of people saying, well, mom and dad both work in oil and gas. And and the kid is constantly being told that we're destroying the planet, or that we are inherently evil, that the work that we do is inherently bad and wrong. It's like we're slave traders or something. It might as well be, in the way the teachers talk about us. So that was one that
that is so. I know it's like it's. I didn't know the extent of how that could be.
Yeah, well, and so it's interesting. So why would school choice matter for something like that? Well, one of the things we're talking about is schools of choice are not going to have Alberta Teachers Association teachers. The Alberta Teachers Association itself pushes a I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's like a People's Guide to Climate Change or something like that. I can't remember. It's actually the title. The title is based on the Howard Zinn book, A People's History of the United States, which is a Marxist retelling of the history of the United States. But so whatever it's called, I can't remember exactly, but it's a People's Guide to Teaching Climate Change or something like that. They push this on their teachers. It actually says that we as a society have to break free of the idea of private property, because obviously if people own their property, then they might drill for oil under it, or they might they might cut the trees on it or something like that. And so it even goes as far as to say that to confront the climate crisis, we have to confront the idea of private property, of ownership itself. And there's so the Alberta Teachers Association and the faculties of education, especially, I think it was especially the University of Calgary, actually, faculty of education. When the K through 6 social studies curriculum was rewritten, they threw an absolute fit about the social studies curriculum was going to include, it does now, and at the time was going to include a requirement in grade 3, which is when you're taught Alberta history in the social studies curriculum. Not a fan of that, by the way. I think you should be taught Alberta history after you've been taught more history than that. Mm-hmm. The grade 3 is pretty early to have to learn Alberta history. For instance, you're learning about Indian immigration to Alberta before you learn about India. You're learning about the impact of Father Lacombe on Alberta before you've learned about Christianity in history class. It's like so some of these things I think are out of sequence, should be done more in a logical sequence. But anyway, grade 3 is when we do Alberta history. So in grade 3, one of the requirements is that you learn how natural resources, so it doesn't just say oil, doesn't just say oil and gas, natural resources, generally speaking, how they have been a key factor in the economic development of Alberta. And the Alberta Teachers Association and the faculties of education freaked out that this was going to be in the curriculum, that they could not believe that you were going to have this ideologically biased idea that that natural resources played a key
major if not the major role.
Yeah, I mean, there are whole towns. Like let's even just take coal, for instance. So coal, something that we basically don't do in this province anymore. But all right. So I live in Lethbridge. Right next to me are towns called Colehurst and Coaldale. I think probably that coal had something to do with the establishment of those towns.
Sure.
You know, you go a little north. You go a little north of me. Actually, a place I frequent very frequently is called Diamond City. It's actually called Diamond City after coal, not because coal is the black diamond, or the diamond, the diamond that was available here in Alberta. There's a town called Black Diamond just north of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a town called Carbon. There's a town called Carbondale. It's like just
Yep.
so let's just take for granted that these places exist because of coal. Seems like it, right in the name, right? It is like Fort McMurray exists because of
Of the oil gas.
obviously. Medicine Hat originally existed because of natural gas, and Edson, Hinton exists because of lumber, right? Like,
Yep.
that's why people live in these places.
Yep.
And so it's very easily, it's not ideological at all. It's just a fact that that economic development happened. Towns popped up. That Alberta exists as it does today because of natural resources. That's not
Yep.
even ideological, but they are so ideological. They are so opposed to natural resources in any way, that they saw that as an outright offense, that would be included in the curriculum. So when you've got that kind of pressure coming from the top, from the ATA, how do you feel as a teacher about your freedom to say good things about oil and gas, about your freedom to paint oil and gas as anything but an evil, nasty scourge on the planet, right? And so you can see why a charter school, an independent school, you're going to be more likely to get an education that doesn't demonize the parents that work in oil and gas.
Absolutely.
In the schools.
I didn't know it was such a thing.
Yeah. No, that's and so
gosh.
I was surprised. I shouldn't have been. Again, I should have. I should have realized. Oh, okay. Obviously, that's how it is, because I know that the ATA is radical on all these things. I mean, they had David Suzuki come speak to their. David Suzuki, a radical climate activist, too radical for the NDP, really.
Too radical for
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah. The
NDP.
NDP even had to denounce him. I recall at that time. But the ATA had him come speak to their province-wide teachers convention, and paid him a hefty fee to do so. So obviously, I should have seen that coming. I knew that they were radical on this issue, and obviously put two and two together. But until I traveled the province and talked to parents, it didn't click. Oh yeah, that's going to be a huge problem. Is you're going to be motivated to have more choice in education because your kid's being taught you're a monster at school. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and not to mention this thing called I'm going to show you something really cool. This is from the Alberta Teachers Association directly, Diversity, Equity, and Human Rights, and that is about. I just googled independence. I just googled Prism ATA, just that.
Okay.
That, and I found this picture here. I'm just gonna zoom in here, right? Gender, sexuality, alliance, whatever that is. And there's find this guy here, diversity, equity, and human rights, and that sort of thing. You see everything in there. Alberta Teachers Association supporting families is all in there. Diversity, equity, and human rights. So basically, that's all. Now it's the picture. Alberta Association, Gay Straight Alliance. Don't know what it is, but
well, and one of the things you're showing there is the Prism toolkit, PRISM, if someone's listening and not viewing, so it's called the Prism toolkit because a prism is the thing that turns white light into a rainbow. Haha, do you get it? And so it's a toolkit for, as they call it, you're showing it on the screen, safe and caring discussions about sexual and gender minorities. So this was something that the Alberta Teachers Association developed because the law in Alberta was, and we'll talk about what's changed. The law in Alberta was that if you're going to talk about human sexuality in the classroom, if it is the if it is the if you're speaking explicitly about human sexuality, it doesn't mean using explicit language or whatever, but if you're explicitly intending to speak about human sexuality, and it's the primary purpose of the lesson, then you have to give parents the opportunity to opt their child out of that lesson. So same as you have to do for religion, by the way, is if you're going to teach, basically it was, if you're going to teach kids about some of the most controversial things that parents are going to have clear views on, and you don't want to teach them out of accordance with the values of their parents. So you give the parents the option to opt their kid out of those classes. The PRISM toolkit was designed specifically to evade that law. It's a collection.
And which way?
It's a collection of lesson plans for math, for language arts, for social studies, for they usually keep it out of health class, but there are, I think, a few for that. But for science, it's a series of lesson plans to make sure that your lesson is primarily about a topic in science or language arts or math or social studies, but you know that it will actually drive the discussion towards sexual orientation and gender identity.
So let's say that, just for the sake of argument, that we're talking let's say that we're talking about math. So in an exam, you can say something like, the regular way we were doing back then is like, Connie has 3 apples, John has 6 apples. How many apples do we have in the basket? And you say it is the number in question. Now you can say, with this toolkit, you can say something like, John has 3 apples, Dave has 9. How many apples do we have? You see the difference? Is it something that's supposed to work? Or perhaps like let's say that Dale,
Well,
let's say
it's even
Dave.
just, if it's some of it's way more explicit than that. Is like, it's supposed to be a math lesson, but in the middle of the math lesson, you're saying some people are non-binary. What non-binary means is, so it's a math lesson, but you're introducing the concept of non-binary in the math lesson. And that's and obviously, you know, as a teacher, that's going to be way more interesting to the students than math. So what's the conversation that's naturally going to develop there? You're going to be talking about what non-binary is the whole time. You're not really going to end up doing the math lesson so much. And so that's the kind of thing. So the PRISM toolkit was specifically designed, like, I don't think it's too harsh to say, specifically designed to evade Alberta law, to keep parents in the dark about what teachers were teaching in classrooms. So what's changed is that, fortunately, so we had a petition. So we'll go back to one of our petitions. We had a petition called Tell Us What Kids Are Learning.
And let's talk about the petitions too, right? It's because we have a lot of petitions, right? I'm going to switch over here. So I'm currently at the Alberta Parents Union website right now. So this is the main website.
So the whole front page is how you sign up for our mailing list. So if you're not getting our emails, we send out a newsletter every week for free. It's completely voluntary. We're funded completely by voluntary donations. So, if you get on our mailing list, we will remind you that we need money, but you're never going to be asked to pay to keep receiving this information. So we're basically sort of informing you for free. If you want us to keep existing, you can give us money to keep doing it. But so that's the whole front page is just to sign up for our mailing list, because that's the basic thing we provide, is just to keep parents in the know with our newsletter. But then we have the action tab, we've got our current campaigns that we're working on in each of those areas. And I don't mind talking about all of them, but let's skip right now to tell us what kids are learning, because this is
Okay.
this
This is
is
what we're just trying to
this is the one we
right?
did. This is the one we did, which got an immediate change from the government. Now we've left it up. It's still an active. It's still an active petition because they we actually did. We actually did mention things like oil and gas and just teaching about Marxism and race and racial reconciliation and all those things. We mentioned those in the petition as well, and the only things that were touched by the new law were sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, I do think that was probably the most important thing for the new law to touch. But so let's but we've left it up because it hasn't covered everything we were talking about. So, but we did get some policy change here because we, to the best of my knowledge, we were the only group pushing on this specifically, to tell us what kids are learning, just disclosing to parents what's going on, concerned about these evasions of Alberta law, where the Alberta Teachers Association is encouraging teachers to keep parents in the dark when they're teaching kids about controversial issues. And even in this, we mentioned they've got lesson plans on there's a company called Layplan or Lesplan that has lesson plans on the January 6th insurrection in the United States.
Oh, come on, for real?
Canadian company, but they're pushing a narrative on the January 6th stuff. They've got one on eating crickets.
Oh my gosh.
They've got one on residential schools that has
all the usual psyops that you see on CBC or on CTV.
Yeah, but the one on residential schools, the front cover appears to be a positive depiction of a burning church, as far as I can tell. That's what it looks like to me. I don't have a degree in art studies or something, but it looks to me like it's a positive depiction of a burning church. But anyway,
what's the name of the document? I'm just gonna look that up.
So Lesplan, Lesplan, and it's their residential school lesson plan that they sell. So we were talking about all these kinds of issues about the climate change, and your parents are burning up the earth kind of stuff. Your sexual orientation, gender identity, race and racism, all that kind of stuff. So we talked about all that stuff. But on sexual orientation and gender identity in particular, we did get some movement from the government on this. And I do think that was the one where the most sort of pressure from the ATA was coming, the most concentrated attempt to keep parents in the dark in evasion, let's say, of Alberta law came. And so last year, with after we launched this petition, and after it had gotten up to about 4,000 signatures, the Alberta government introduced Bill 27, which did a couple things. First of all, it explicitly added sexual orientation and gender identity to the law about teaching about human sexuality, and parents have to be informed, because a lot of people were claiming that well, we're not teaching about human sexuality, we're teaching about sexual orientation and gender identity. It's part of our anti-discrimination work here. It's not about human sexuality at all. And so they explicitly added sexual orientation, gender identity are now included with human sexuality. The most important thing I think they did was that they changed the opt-out to an opt-in. In other words, you need parents to actually sign a paper saying that their child is allowed to receive this education, not to opt their child out. And I think that's really important because it switches the incentives to where now the school is incentivized to give parents more information, because if parents just don't feel right about it, if they just feel like they don't have enough information, they might not sign the form.
Whereas, and I just found the document here. Provide the parent or student with the option to consent to the student. This is from the assembly.ca website.
Yes,
directly. That's the PDF file here. That's law, actually.
Yeah. And so yes, it passed into law. I was thinking that we were going to go to court. On the as an intervener defending this law, but so far there hasn't been a lawsuit against it. We'll see if there is in September when this law actually takes full effect. But they've sued about some of the other laws that passed, or one of the other laws, Bill 26, which passed at the same time.
That is the transgender something, right?
It's the medical one. So we're not a medical. We don't talk to parents about medical issues, and I have no expertise on medical issues, but more importantly, we have no mandate from parents on the medical side, so we're not involved in that part. But we were involved in Bill 27, which was the classroom stuff, and Bill 29, which was the keeping boys out of girls' sports side, particularly as pertains to school sports. We're working on those two. So those three laws passed together. The one that we have nothing to do with is the only one that there's been a lawsuit about. And so far we're not going to court, but we might be if there's a lawsuit filed against these later. But anyway, so okay, yeah, Bill 27 did a couple things. The most important, I think, it changed the opt-out to an opt-in. So parents actually have to sign a form saying that their child is allowed to receive this education. That's really important. It switches the incentives to make schools need to come clean with parents, because, if parents are feeling iffy about it and it's an opt-out, they're probably not going to raise their voices and opt out. But if they're feeling iffy about it and it's an opt-in, they just don't sign the form, right?
Yeah.
But it's just switches.
It's like the opposite.
Yeah, it just switches the incentives to put the ball more in the parents' court there and incentivize the school to tell us more. And so that was a great change. There was also the school can't change the name and pronoun they call a child by without at least making a plan to inform the parents. So that and to get parental consent. So it's parental consent until they're 16, and then just informing the parents for 16 and 17-year-olds. Obviously, 18-year-olds are adults, so no legal recourse there. But so 16 and 17-year-olds, you have to tell the parents. 15 and younger, you have to at least make a plan to get parental consent. And you can't, because one of the issues was the other side would call this a forced outing bill. They're saying that you're outing gay kids. These kids are out. The school janitor has to call them by their preferred pronouns at school. It was only the parents that were being kept in the dark.
And is it that Is it that at the same time when the other Randy was talking about this? I just found this thing
Yeah,
on.
he said it was a an Article 5 moment for the LGBTQ or whichever acronym he used community that that or a he said I think he called it a NATO moment, and so we joked that we don't think he meant that it was something that the government should underspend on for decades, falling short of its falling short of its commitments. We think he meant the Article 5 of NATO, where an attack on one is an attack on all, that he was comparing it to a military invasion. So anyway, so yeah, that was that. Those were the bills. Those three bills together are what the other Randy was talking about.
The other Randy.
Yeah, and so so yeah, that so okay, so that was so the can't change names and pronouns for kids without informing the parents, changing the opt-in to an opt-out, adding sexual orientation and gender identity, and then the other very interesting thing that they did here is that these resources that are being used in the classroom are going to need to be approved by the Ministry of Education. Now, we didn't ask for that because, again, that's more of a centralized thing, not really our thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're more of a freedom of choice. But what we did want was for parents to know what was being used in their classroom. And one thing that the approval by the ministry definitely accomplishes is that means it's super easy to just have a list of everything that's been approved and say, okay, schools, all these things that have been approved, they've all got a number. You put that number in a Google Drive and tell the parents, here's all the stuff we're using, so they can look it up and find out for themselves the resources you're using. So that was a big win. So this has gotten a little better on that, but like I say, only on the sexual orientation, gender identity, human sexuality stuff, not on some of these other issues that parents are also deeply concerned about. And so that's why you can still sign that petition on our website, is because we haven't gotten the full win that we wanted there.
Interesting. Any other petitions?
Yeah. So, I mean, the ones we've talked about the most recently are at the, well, I guess we've talked about a lot of these recently, but anyway, so they're all active campaigns. But the ones that we've talked about the most recently, especially on our mailing list, have been NINCHI Must Come Clean. Just sent out an email about that one last week. And so this is so Nahid Ninchi was actually the leader of the NDP. He was actually the keynote speaker at a conference hosted by Public Interest Alberta, which is like a think tank, action tank, kind of like us, but for the public sector unions.
Yeah, I think I know them. I think I heard about them. Yeah,
for the government unions. And this conference was held in the ATA headquarters in Edmonton. And
you see,
both Public Interest Alberta and the ATA call for the abolition of charter schools and for defunding independent schools. And so we had the natural question, hey, we don't know what Ninchi talked about, but it seems kind of unlikely that he gave a rigorous, full-throated defense of school choice at this event. Come to think of it, Ninchi has never mentioned where he stands on school choice. He wants to lead the province. He should probably come clean and tell us where he stands on school choice. Rachel Notley did. She said, basically, she always said basically that she's not a huge fan, but she's not going to touch it. She's not going to roll anything back. She's not going to defund anything. is that the position Nenchi's going to take? Is he going to, like the NDP before him, going to deny new charter schools because he doesn't really believe in them? He's not going to pull the rug out from under the ones that already exist, but he's not going to approve new ones. Is he going to actually roll back charter schools in some way? Is he actually going to defund independent schools in some way? Is he going to go after home education like the NDP did last time, where one third of home educating students were all under the same school authority, which was Wisdom, and so they went after and Wisdom is almost exclusively a home education provider, and so they went after Wisdom, and they were looking they were making accusations about their finances and stuff like that, that basically a judge eventually said that they were that the government and Wisdom, but obviously we think the government primarily was at fault here. They were the aggressor here. Anyway, a judge later said that overturned the NDP's decision and said that the government were basically being children about this. Is he going to do stuff like that? Is he going to, like past NDP Minister of Education, is he going to call particular independent schools and threaten their funding unless they put exactly what they want about not telling parents if their kid joins a gay straight alliance in their school policies, which is what the last NDP Minister of Education, David Eggen, did. So anyway, that's those. We would like Nenchi to come clean, tell us where he stands on school choice. So that's the one that we emailed about most recently. And then the other one that we've been keeping on the front burner is the one you showed that was called Strike Proof Alberta Students. Now that is basically directly a money should follow child petition, but in this case it's a money should follow the child in the case of a teacher strike, that parents should be able to get one-time funding to follow their child to a school that's open, which is to say a school that isn't run by the ATA, a charter school, an independent school, or to fund home education, or to fund or to fund a just an online tutoring program, or to fund a tutor just to keep the kids in practice so that they're not experiencing great learning loss during the strike, or like an apprenticeship or a trades opportunity or something like that. We think if there's a strike and the public schools, Catholic schools, Francophone schools, and alternative programs even, which a lot of the Edmonton Christian School, the Heritage Christian Academy in Calgary, the Emmanuel Christian School here in Lethbridge, all those schools are alternative program schools, which means that they are under a school board. In the case of Calgary, not their local school board, because the Calgary Board of Education does not provide Christian alternative programs. But anyway, but that does mean, being under their local school boards, that does mean that they have Alberta Teachers Association teachers. So those schools will be closed in the event of a strike as well. So we think parents should have the option to have the money follow the child in the event of a strike, to be able to make sure that their their child's education continues in the event of a strike. Make sure that parents are able to find options, and you're not spending that money in their classroom that's on strike. You're not paying the teacher during a strike. You're not paying for the insurance and for the lights and for all the things that fund an education. There's some costs that would continue, but sort of like they would during the summer when the school's basically not open, that kind of thing. So yeah, we said that there should be an education continuity allowance, is what we're calling it, money to follow the child in the event of a strike, so that we can strike-proof Alberta students and make sure that the kids and the parents who don't have a seat at the table, who don't have a say in what happens in this strike negotiation, that they're not the ones bearing the brunt of a strike. If the adults can't get their act together, we shouldn't take it out on the kids. So that's the idea with Strike Proof Alberta Students. And that's the next most recent campaign that we've talked about, the most recent campaign that we've launched. Yeah, so so we don't use the word voucher or anything like that, but it's very similar to the idea of a voucher. In this case, it's just the idea of having a special voucher in the case of a strike. And so we do also have a general voucher petition called School Voucher for Every Child. That's one of our longest standing petitions, I think. So we've got that one as well. That's just generally making the case for money following the child, school choice being a better option for everyone. I don't know if we've lost our host, but he wanted me to talk about the petitions, so I can keep doing that for a minute. So yeah, we've got the a school voucher for every child petition, which is just your basic school voucher petition, one of our longest standing petitions. Maybe the next longest standing after that would be Save Louise Dean. I bring that up now because if you're watching now and you sign up for our emails, then at 7:30 a.m. I think tomorrow you'll be receiving in your inbox a petition that is going to have a very similar theme to the Save Louise Dean. So Save Louise Dean was, or in my mind at least, it's a very similar theme, and I'll probably explain that in an email, not tomorrow, but sometime soon. So Save Louise Dean was 2.5 years ago. The Calgary Board of Education, I guess it was probably about 3 years ago when this started, because I think it was actually in May we found this in the buried away in the minutes of the school board, where they didn't expect anyone to look. The Calgary Board of Education came up with this crackpot idea to move a school for teen moms, so some of the most vulnerable students they had, to move that school from its protected separate location in their own school building in downtown Calgary into an existing school in the Forest Lawn neighborhood of Calgary. If you don't know Calgary, Forest Lawn is one of the rougher neighborhoods of Calgary. Hi, welcome back, Max. I
had a power outage.
Okay,
I lost power for about 5 minutes, and I don't know what happened. So I was like in the stream, and then poof, it died.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
I did notice that it said that there were only one people in the studio, or one person in the studio instead of two. So I did eventually notice I was by myself.
It was a technical issue. I'm so sorry. The first time it happened, and I got battery backups here. I have 3 UPSs here, one two for the servers and one for my computer, and the one for my computer decided to, I don't know.
Well, that's okay. I kept the show going while you were gone. So
Oh, thanks.
I
Yes.
because you had said you wanted me to talk about the petition, so that was an
Oh,
easy thing for me to
absolutely.
keep
And we're not.
riffing on. So I finished talking about. I think we lost you while I was still talking about Ninchi Must Come Clean. Um,
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
and so we talked about that one. We talked about the um, Strike Proof Alberta Students, which is the most recent petition that we've launched, which is because it's looking like there might be a teacher strike. The teachers have voted to authorize a strike. It's just the ATA just needs to sort of declare one, and they're obviously, maybe not obviously, but it looks like they're going to wait and not declare a strike in the summer when teachers are off anyway. Most teachers are off anyway. It looks like they're going to hold out to September um, to declare a strike when kids will actually be in school. So
Mm-hmm.
we're arguing that just because the adults can't get their act together doesn't mean that the kids need to suffer. That there should be an education continuity allowance, which is basically like a voucher for this specific situation of a teacher strike, where the money will follow the child to a school that the parents choose, or to tutoring, or to home education, or to a apprenticeship opportunity, or to any number of other things, um, to anything that the parents can find to make sure that their education uh, isn't destroyed during a teacher strike. We want there to be an education continuity allowance to let the parents take that money that you're not spending on the teachers, or keeping the lights on, or maintenance. I guess you've got to spend some on maintenance, but I think schools get to pay less insurance when there aren't kids in school, and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. All that money that you're not spending because kids aren't in school because of the teacher strike, let that money follow the children so that their parents can choose um, an educational opportunities to prevent learning loss in the event of a strike. So that was our big. Can you imagine if we had that during COVID, where
Oh
you
my
had
gosh.
education continuity allowance? So if your school was closed during COVID, you could take it to a learning opportunity that was actually open. You weren't stuck with the school's poorly planned online offerings. You're free to go find something else. I mean, there wasn't a in that case, there were shutdowns all over the place, but at least you'd have a chance of finding something. And of course, the Alberta Parents Union didn't quite exist yet, but I was doing education policy research for the Alberta Institute at the time, and part of the reason the Alberta Parents Union exists is because we had two petitions under the Alberta Institute at the time, called I can't remember if it was remove or whatever, remove mandatory masks in schools, and
Mm-hmm.
reopen Alberta schools permanently. Those were the
So,
two.
so those petitions, they get submitted through the Alberta Parents Union, and they get submitted to a sitting MLA.
Well, we go straight to the Minister of Education. So when
Oh.
basically when you see the goal number, the goal number for signatures there, basically that's my hint that it's time to take that petition to the MLA, or to the Minister of Education,
Okay.
and bring it to his attention at that point. So, and by the way, it's just because something it hasn't met its goal on our website doesn't mean we haven't presented it to the Minister of Education. These are Nation Builder websites, and Nation Builder automatically updates your goal when you reach your goal.
Oh, really?
And so if we reach our goal multiple times, I'll bring it up to the minister multiple times. That's kind of how we do it.
Okay, I see.
But yeah, so that's so yeah, just because it you if you click through, I know people, a couple people have clicked through and been like, have you not met your goal for any of your petitions? It's like, no, the goal goes up when we meet our goal automatically.
Oh, okay.
Nation Builder does that automatically. So
I did not know that.
you can, I guess you can set it to do that automatically, and they encourage you to set it to do that automatically. I think you can forget to set the series. If you forget to set a series of goals, then it won't do it. But anyway, I think we always set ours up to make sure that there's a new goal every time you reach your goal. But that's my hint, that I should take it to the Ministry of Education at that point. And so anyway, and so that's how we frequently have gotten movement. And sometimes ministries of education, or it's not always the Ministry of Education, sometimes it's a school board or whatever, but sometimes they will notice our petition even before we meet our goal, and so we can get movement without us explicitly meeting our goal even. But yeah, so I talked about strike proof Alberta students. I talked about how a school voucher for every child is the more general school voucher. All the money follows the child to whatever education parents choose, rather than Educats in Edmonton deciding how much follows the child to which school. And then
that's the one I'm looking right now.
Yes, a school voucher for every child. Yes. So yeah, that and then I was mentioning that the next one we did, so that was one of our earliest ones, a school voucher for every child. Obviously, that's one of the most central campaigns that we would have. And I was just saying, one of the next ones we did was Save Louise Dean. Louise Dean is still, but was a school for teen moms, or Save Louise Dean School. It was a school for teen moms in downtown Calgary, with its own separate building, and it was wildly successful. So yeah, you'll see a new location, and that's part of the problem. But anyway, actually, I think actually the no, okay, yeah, it's moved. So that's actually, you'll see the sign that's Jack James High School, actually. And so they had this program for teen moms, some of the most vulnerable students, in a separate location in downtown Calgary, very safe location that the mothers liked, and it was a wildly successful program. So
what did they teach there?
They taught the regular Alberta curriculum, but they also had classes on
finances,
on kids and finances, and all kinds of practical stuff that single moms need. And they had childcare. They had a nursery in the building and all that. So
very good.
So very cool program, designed to keep moms that are pregnant or that give birth before they graduate high school, to make sure that they have a chance to graduate high school. Before we had programs like this, there was about a 50% immediate dropout rate as soon as a woman got pregnant, and the graduation rate was in the 20s. I think it was maybe 28 or 26, but it was almost half again of these girls didn't graduate, and 50% of them would drop out immediately. But the Louise Dean Center had I believe it was 96.4, maybe it was 94.6. It was one of those two, graduation rate.
Oh, nice.
An incredible graduation rate. Um, their kids ended up healthier than the kids of their peers. So kids not involved in kids of mothers not involved in this program. Um, Moms from this program were more likely to go on to post-secondary than moms not in the program. Actually, I think they were more likely. I think they were more likely to go on to post-secondary than even the other uh, students from their neighborhoods that didn't get pregnant while in high school. And so wildly successful program. Um, all the numbers were great on it. And we sort of argued that the Calgary Board of Education obviously doesn't know what makes the school successful, because if they did, they do it at every school. And and there were lots of schools that don't have that kind of success. Like Jack James, which is a not particularly successful school in the Forest Lawn neighborhood of Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest objection that the teen moms had themselves to their program being relocated to Jack James was that it was dangerous. They said the
For
school
them.
was dangerous, that the school would be dangerous for them, that the commute would be dangerous for them, that their abusers and harassers tended to be more likely to go to a school like Jack James than a school downtown. A lot of the girls are actually from the Forest Lawn neighborhood, and that's why the Calgary Board of Education said we want to move them back to Forest Lawn. But the girls themselves were saying, no. Us going to school outside our neighborhood was actually great for us. That was working. We're avoiding our abusers and harassers. We're in a place where we can get that out of our minds, that kind of thing, focus on our education. And so, and
what's the reason why it and why is that we need? Was it that is this school is on the verge of being closed or something?
Well, so the Calgary Board of Education said this like it was a bad thing, but the fact is that the teen pregnancy rate has gone way down since they opened the school. That's a great problem to have, but it does mean there were fewer students at the school. I think there were 40 some odd, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. The petition probably says, but not in the update, but in the original petition. And so I think it was maybe 40 some odd students left in the program, which is a great problem to have. But the Calgary Board of Education doesn't necessarily do small, they say they want small class sizes, but they actually don't do a great job with small schools, small classes. The most vulnerable students, their track record isn't actually that amazing with those folks. They tend to do better with big, and they wanted to move. Now, one of the things that's going on here is that they've been asking for a modernization of Jack James High School, but Jack James High School is actually just across a football field from the Forest Lawn High School.
Mm-hmm.
The Forest Lawn High School just received a big modernization recently. And so the provincial government was like, well, Jack James is below 85% utilization. I think it was down around 50%. They were only using about 50% of the space that they had in Jack James. And we just did a big expensive modernization for Forest Lawn High School. So no, we don't want to do a big expensive modernization for Jack James. We'd rather, having our druthers, we'd rather close Jack James and open a new school further out on the outskirts where newer young families are, rather than leaving this school open in Forest Lawn. But the province doesn't make decisions about closing individual schools. Only school boards can do that. And so so that was, I think I'm reading between the lines a little, but I think that was what was going on, because they had requested a modernization for Jack James. The provincial government had turned them down. So I think one of the things they thought they could do here was they could sell the downtown property that the Louise Dean School was sitting on, and it would fetch a pretty penny. Um, and they could move the Louise Dean School for teen moms into this Jack James School that they want modernized. And that would raise the utilization rate of
Mm-hmm.
Jack James, because they'd take up more space. They now the I don't know exactly how the utilization rate would count, um, like the nursery and stuff like that exactly. But anyway, at any rate, you move more students into the school, your utilization rate will go up, and now you can ask the province for that modernization again. Um, and so I think, reading between the lines, I'm like, okay, it's like free money from selling the location, uh, the old location, and maybe free money from the province, the
Mm-hmm.
taxpayer, uh, for a new modernization for Jack James. Win-win. I Reading between the lines, I kind of think that's what they thought. I think they thought they could slip it through without anybody noticing, but we saw it in the minutes of the Calgary Board of Education, um, and we saw a problem. Uh, we saw a problem here because the moms themselves said that Jack James would be an unsafe location for them, and so and we thought that seemed likely. And
I think you're. I think you're frozen, Jeff. Jeff, are you there? I think I lost Jeff.
um,
Oh, I lost you for about 30 seconds. I don't know what happens. Probably you have problems now. Earlier it was me, and now it is you. I guess it's kind of frozen. Hello. Sorry, guys. We're trying to sorting this out. No, this is not a power issue here. Just a second. I'm just gonna do a few things here. I don't know if he sees me or not, but I'm just gonna wait that probably at 30 seconds until he comes back again. Okay, just a sec. I'm just gonna restart the feed here, and I'm going back to you. Oh, I think I can see you now.
Okay.
Now it
Okay.
is
Okay.
now it is your turn to have problems now.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's Skynet.
I don't know. It said my internet was 5 bars the whole time, so I'm not sure.
No, I don't know what happens. I don't know. Sometimes it happens with Chrome, where they have issues like this. I use
Well,
Firefox, to be honest, so
well,
it's
I'm
much more
I'm
stable.
I'm on a Mac right now because this is usually the most stable option I have. Um, so I can't remember what the Mac browser is called, but um,
Safari.
Safari. Yes, yeah, I'm on Safari right now, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So where were we or talking about the petitions and the Louis Dean petition there and the schools and that particular school there?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that is sometimes it's a glitch on the matrix, I guess. Um, you were talking about just before we started. You sent me a text that you have another petition that is
Yes.
not quite on the website. Can
Yes.
you expand on
So,
that?
and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about Louise Dean here is because to me, I see parallels between these. So and in fact, when I looked at my phone when I got knocked off, I see that I've got some last minute edits I should make to this petition before it goes out tomorrow. But um, so to me, similar situation. It seems a little similar because there's a nonverbal autistic 11-year-old child under the Calgary Board of Education, once again, who was in a specialized classroom in Pine Ridge School, um, uh, where there were only 8 students, small class size.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes home with bites and scratches and bruises in locations that couldn't have possibly been self-inflicted. The doctors and the parents uh, all say that this is a child that's never been aggressive um, with them, and he's one of the biggest and strongest kids at the school. So he shows up with unexplained wounds. Um, Not an aggressive kid himself, couldn't have been self-inflicted. Um, and it looks like an adult must have done it, basically. Um,
Oh,
and
I,
uh, and and uh, and the Pine Ridge School and the Calgary Board of Education investigate themselves and find that they've done nothing wrong, and that
it's like the
uh,
police investigating themselves.
yeah, and that so that they don't know what happened, even though the parents have been told that a school employee did notice bite marks on their son and reported it to a teacher at 10:30 or 11 a.m. on the day in question, and the parents were never told that had happened. Um, and But they were told no one saw anything, no one noticed anything, and also we've investigated it, and the classroom was appropriately supervised. In other words, nothing could have happened, and we didn't, or nothing could have happened without us seeing it, and we didn't see anything. And so that doesn't add up really. And so the family is calling for an investigation into CBE, not just to have CBE investigate themselves. And so we're launching a petition tomorrow, calling on the Ministry of Education to ensure that a genuine investigation is done into this matter. And so I see those as kind of similar, just in the sense of the Calgary Board of Education having a hard time um, exercising appropriate care towards their most vulnerable students. So you've got teen moms, you move them into, oh yeah, I got cut off before I got to the punchline here. This school, Jack James, that they said was safe, that they said we were racist for implying that it wasn't safe.
Safe and
That
effective.
yeah, that safe and effective school, Jack James, there a 13-year-old stabbed a 15-year-old in that school 2 weeks before the Calgary Board of Education voted to move the teen moms there. And so anyway, that was that was the Louise Dean situation. Now, fortunately, so you were looking at the updated version where we switched it from being a petition aimed at the Calgary Board of Education to being a petition aimed at Adriana LaGrange, who was at the time the education minister. And ultimately, the province did come through and give us significant security funding, security upgrades for Louise Dean, a separate key card entrance that only the teen mom students could use, a separate bus route, and lots of security upgrades to make them feel more safe in that area. I think they might have put in an elevator because the side of the school that that the Calgary Board of Education was expecting them to use had stairs, and when you're the parents will immediately get why that's a problem, is you need strollers and stuff like that. So and so yeah, anyway, all that is all that was a concern in the Louise Dean situation. In this situation, you've got a very similar situation. Obviously, unsafe environment for some of the most vulnerable students in the school. Nonverbal autistic child who can't express himself, who can't say who bit him, all that kind of stuff. And so, that's so to me, I see a relationship between those two things. I think perhaps the difference in this petition is immediately aimed at the province to get them to investigate, but I will be interested to see if the Calgary Board of Education takes this one more seriously, because unlike Louise Dean,
because it's coming from the because the provincial government can intervene into this, right?
Yeah, because of that, or because the other thing I wonder if it'll make a difference is they took that Louise Dean vote 3 years before the next election, whereas this is happening in an election year. So I wonder if, let's just assume they're evil. They still might be motivated to actually do something about this one, because even evil people want to be reelected. So,
yeah, exactly.
So we'll see if this gets a different response from CBE. Now, I don't know what they can do, because they've already claimed that they've done an investigation. Even opening a new investigation themselves would be kind of an admission that the first one was a cover-up. So I don't even know what they can do. But yeah, that's our petition that's going out tomorrow. And we'll be trying to raise a lot of attention, because the other thing is, this happened on May 29th. And obviously, unlike something that goes in the minutes for the school board, we can't, if no one tells us about it and it's not reported in the media, and obviously they're not going to talk about it in the minutes at the school board meeting, we have no way of knowing about it.
And these are the things that we know.
Right.
What are the things that we don't know?
Right. So now CTV Calgary has covered this incident, but that's it. So and now here on freedomcalendar.net, those are now the only two media outlets that I'm aware of, and I think I'm aware of all of them. The only two media outlets that have covered that have covered this incident. So we're hoping to bring a lot more attention to the
Absolutely.
incident and to get some real answers for the family in this situation.
Oh yeah, I will absolutely going to watch the petition. I'm gonna sign. I'm gonna publish it everywhere, because I've seen, unfortunately, the situation with autistic kids and people with mental conditions in school is that they're so neglected because of, primarily because of a lack of understanding of their mental problems, right? And the fact that was beaten by whom we don't know. Do you know if the Calgary police is involved in this, or?
So the Calgary police have opened an investigation, but anytime you have police investigating a school incident, it's a question of how much they feel they're allowed to push, because schools kind of manage their own security and manage their own discipline and all that kind of thing. So the uh, so that's one of the reasons the Calgary Police Service just opened, and that's why CTV finally covered it, and why we found out about it is the Calgary Police just opened an investigation, like maybe well, it was the Friday before the Sunday that we were in the same place, so that was not long ago at all. And then I met with the family on the Sunday that I saw you in Edmonton. So
Yeah, and I just found the article here.
yeah, so that's the one news article that's been done about it so far, and so yeah, the Calgary Police Service has opened an investigation, but so often when it's something that happens at a school, they don't really do
Push
the
really
same
though.
kind of full investigation because they don't feel like they can in a school context. So that's where the Minister of Education coming along and saying, no, Calgary Police Service, do a full investigation. If that's all it takes, or if the minister needs to do his own investigation, I don't care. A full investigation needs to be done. And the Minister of Education needs to be the one to say that it needs to be done so that it gets done. So that's where we
Um,
stand on this.
is it possible that because it's Calgary Police, and that is a school under the Calgary Board of Education, that is that municipal, or this is something like two different entities?
Well, Calgary Police Service is municipal. Calgary Board of Education is technically separate. The elections happen at the same time, October 20th this year. They happened. They happened almost 4 years ago now at the same time, and will happen on October 20th this year.
And how do you know about this incident? How was that reported to you?
This incident. So my youngest son has autism spectrum disorder. So actually my wife saw it through one of our autism family support groups, and sent it to me. Sent this, actually not this story, sent a Facebook post that ultimately I think came from this story. And also mentioned the protest on that coming Sunday at Calgary City Hall, which is where I went and met the family and talked to them directly.
That's sad. That's sickening for real.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and these are the incidents we do know.
Right.
What about those we don't know?
Exactly.
Like, that's gonna be a very interesting thing to watch for real. So when do you think this petition will come online? At tomorrow at 7:30
a.m. Yeah.
a.m.
So if your listeners go sign up for my email right now at albertaparentsunion.ca. Great website. They go that whole front page. They'll make sure to get that petition in their inbox as soon as it's available.
That I'm going to sign the petition for sure, and I will show it up. By the way, how do you interact with you on social media? What's your Twitter handle, Facebook handle, or what you
Yeah, so
YouTube
you
channels?
can find me on Facebook at Jeffrey Park. I got Facebook before I was officially Jeff instead of Jeffrey to basically everyone who knew me. Um, um, and so you can find me on Facebook at Jeffrey Park. You can and Jeff Park is my professional page on Facebook. You can find the Alberta Parents Union page and the Alberta Parents Union Facebook group on Facebook. Um, and we have lots of parents sharing things going on, keeping us up to date in that Facebook group. And then we've got at AB Parents Union on Twitter. That is more just our petitions and stuff now, because Twitter has really uh, changed the way it works, where you can't, and especially especially the way it treats news links and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Our
absolutely.
whole approach was basically to post the news, and
Is this the
content.
one you're referring to?
Um, uh, the Alberta Parents Union. And then at J Park YYC is mine. You can see the picture of me speaking at the protest for the 11-year-old boy.
Oh,
Is my picture on both social medias right now. So that'll make it easy to know that you found the right guy. Um, so yeah, you can find us in all those places, but the best way to find us is by signing up for those emails at albertaparentsunion.ca. That way you're getting our newsletters. That's the main way we communicate, and you can communicate with us by responding to any of those. We can we have a contact form on our website, but it goes in the same box that responding to one of the emails does. So that's easy enough. I read every comment on all the petitions. So if you sign a petition and you have a comment about it, you can just leave it on the petition. And I make sure to read all the comments on the petitions to get feedback that way too.
yeah, that's gonna be fantastic. And basically, you have volunteers gonna help you sort that out, sort the website, that type of thing, right?
So we have some part-time helpers and some volunteers who help us with all those sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't forget to join as well. That actually was gonna help with the people as well.
So joining is that's $10 a month just to the nice thing about that, and one of the reasons for the name Alberta Parents Union was that we wanted to make it a membership-based organization. The idea is education is people pay a lot of attention to education at back to school time, or when there's a strike, or when there's COVID, or whatever. People pay a lot of
Yeah.
attention to education at certain times. But then if you want an organization to fight for you, we need to be able to pay the bills all year. And so the
Yeah.
whole idea was like to try to smooth out those
Operation
valleys,
costs.
and have a membership based organization where it's just $10 a month, and you're keeping us alive so that we can read
Function.
as many school board minutes as possible, keep up with all the bills, advocate to the education minister, keep up with the research, all that year round, so that when something you care about does come up, we're here, we've been working on it, we know what's going on. That's the idea. And
Oh yeah.
also, I think a lot of people appreciate that we're not going to tell you to call your MLA every month or to fill out a survey every month. We're going to tell you, if you call your MLA this month about this, you might actually accomplish something. Or if you email the Minister of Education this month about this, you might actually, or if you fill out this government survey, they're actually listening, and that kind of stuff, right? So I think people appreciate that. Parents are busy. Uh, Lots of folks, even not who aren't parents, are busy. They be a full-time activist. That's what we're here for. We're here, the full-time activists, keeping up with what's happening in education in Alberta, and we'll keep you up to date and let you know when your activism would really come in handy.
I've heard from a previous stream that, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you have perhaps more experience on the field, but I want to. Essentially, was this guy who used to work for the government. I recorded an event in Barhead, basically saying that the best way to talk to a minister or someone or somebody in government is by sending an actual letter, not a
Yes.
phone call, not an email. And I think I have the clip right here, so I'm just gonna try to play it. I'm gonna try to find the clip for a second here. Oh, I found the clip here, so I'm gonna play it.
I think this might be from ARPA, the Association for Reform Political Action, which is someone I forgot to mention. One of our friends.
No, this is different. This is from another
Oh,
group.
you said Barhead, which made me and the content together made me think it was ARPA.
No. This is something, but I'm gonna show you the screen so you can see what
Yeah,
I'm actually referring by now. So I'm just gonna share the screen here, and so I'm just gonna remove this stop screen because this is like very important if you want to make pressure on your MLA or something that effect. So that's gonna be number, I believe, it's screen number 3, number 2, number 1. Got it. So this is the video I was referring to. This is the video from.
Oh, Joel Mullen. Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
so what do you think of that?
Yeah, no. So yeah, Joel is a good friend of mine as well, and
Oh.
yeah, I know that's true for a lot of offices. I wouldn't say it's true. I wouldn't say it's true for everyone. And I do know the one reason we don't often know, I think it is effective, is that there's no way for us to really track if someone sent a letter. So we can't
Mhm.
know. We can't know. The government knows how many letters they got, but we can't know how many letters they got. So we can't sort of use that information to say, okay, government, we know you've been hearing about this. So that's one of the reasons why we like email and phone call, is because we
You
we
can
can
track them.
have more of a gauge for, at least if someone we know if someone clicked the email address from our email or someone clicked the phone number from our email. So we don't know if they actually completed the call. We don't know if they actually sent the email unless they CC'd us, which they often do. But we do know that they clicked it from the email. We can see that. So, which you can't do with a letter. So that's why we don't necessarily do that. But it is, as far as like general advice, that's good advice. A lot of offices are that way, where a letter is highly impactful, an actual physical letter.
Yeah, and also make sure to and also make sure to always include a return address on your
Yes.
on mail.
Yes.
And also, what I used to do that in the COVID days, what I was doing back, so I was doing advocacy over there. I was actually sending actual, like, Canada Post. Uh, no, what's it called? I was basically sending the mail by UPS, because then you get the return address and the tracking number, so they can know they've seen it. It's more expensive, but at least they know what they're doing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So,
If you're
so
really serious.
that's not that's definitely not um bad advice. If you as an individual want to get the attention of a government official, it's not bad advice. um it's it's not the advice we normally give, only because we want to get the attention of a government official for you, and to do that we need to know kind of how many people are
Yeah,
taking it.
absolutely.
We
Is
can't
that
know which days. um
absolutely?
but I
I
think that might
understand.
be one of the other reasons that it's so effective, is because when they get a letter, they know it's not like a mass campaign, because no mass campaign in their right mind would do it that way, because you can't track how many letters got sent in.
No,
And so,
absolutely
so
not.
that's probably. And by the way, if they do get a mass campaign of letters, they will ignore them too. So, so anyway, it is. Um, but yeah, so that's probably one of the reasons, though, why they are more likely to um and and maybe, yeah, maybe if we had a specific issue uh that we wanted to make our voices heard on, we might do like a postcard campaign where we send you a postcard to send. uh, we send you a postcard to send to your MLA or something. Maybe we would do
Hmm.
something like that and figure out a way to actually keep up with the numbers. But as an organization, it's important to us to spend our donor money wisely. And if we can't track it, we don't know. If
Yeah,
we can't measure
absolutely.
it, we can't know if we're doing a good job. So we have a tendency towards things we can measure.
Ah, absolutely. I totally understand. Any closing remarks?
Yeah, go to albertaparentsunion.ca, sign up for our emails. You'll get a fresh one from me that I will finish writing as soon as we hang up. Apparently, I've got a couple edits to do, um, and uh, and then uh, and then you'll be added to the parents and those who support them army, to advocate for our kids, because really, parents are the real experts in our own kids.
Hmm.
Parents are the best advocates for our own kids. We love it when grandparents and taxpayers and educators. We've got a healthy number of educators signed up to help us as well. We love it when folks come alongside us, but we know that parents are the best advocates for our own kids, and that the parent's voice is um, the most important one that needs to be heard when kids are involved. So, uh, thank we thank all of you for being interested, and we would thank you
Yeah,
to get involved by signing up, and then you'll get all our other pitches.
yeah. And I've heard about some when I told people that I'm about to interview you, that was like, oh, I get in all his emails. That was, oh, really? That's awesome. That's good. So I would like to sincerely thank you for spending the time with me and with the audience here. I know that there were some people watching other events, especially with the by-election down
Mm,
south, I guess. But that's pretty good. And I personally learned a lot about the educational landscape, because this is fairly new to me. I mean, I was trained elsewhere, so it's good to see, like, how things are going on the ground and everything. And I would thank you for taking the time with me and with the audience. And go check it out. This petition. Once he has the petition at 7:30 in the morning ish, I'm gonna push it on social media as well, so you can look that up, because what's happening with this kid, it's just dreadful. It's completely wrong. So let's say let's see how safe and effective the procedures will be. So so thanks for your time, and we'll have an amazing time there. And it's almost, you're running this thing for 3 hours, which is awesome. Which is
Well,
then,
thank you for your endurance. I had a lot of things to
yeah.
say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have plenty of capacity. Probably not my power. We can blame Epcor for that, but I don't know what happened here. So that was good. So thanks
And,
for your time.
and maybe tell us on my end. Who knows? But anyway,
I don't know.
thanks,
I
thanks so
I
much.
got two internet links here. One with Telus and one with Shaw. And one
Okay.
that fails. I have another one. But in this case, it's like a power issue. I don't know what happened. Anyways, well, thanks for being with me today, and we'll see you next time. And hope to see other people as well, and invite other people in the education aspect as well too. So,
All right. Thanks so much.
bonne nuit. Good night.
Good night.